my house.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad my house looks like a background picture. It's not bad, huh?
It does with all the
It's my studio. Studio / library / office.
Is that wallpaper or those are wall hangings in the back?
No, those are like what do you call it? Acoustic foam.
I have no idea what that is. Acoustic.
It's made to limit the amount of sound waves bouncing around. It's for recording.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, yeah. So we were holding in 271 in the Alter Rebbe. We are at Yud Gimel 13. Was there any from 12? Were there any notes that we didn't? Because I remember we were rushing to
finish. Yeah, I don't remember. I think we covered it.
Well, go to note. What is it? The 71, the last one.
Is that the last one I did? You remember? 71. Yeah, 71 is the last one on that.
Okay, what's that one?
It's just a little. When it says when you make kiddush, you should eat a little. It means eat a little, meaning a kazais.
Okay, so we did that one already last time. Did we finish that?
I think we covered them all. I'm just glancing over.
Yeah, I know we were at least close, if not all the way down to them.
Yeah, I think we covered them all.
Okay, fantastic. So now Yud Gimel. So now we were talking about that he said that it's better you shouldn't bench, right? Let me go back and see what he was saying before. Yeah, he was saying that you shouldn't. He was saying what happens if you if what's it called? If you were making a meal, and in the middle you reach the time of kiddush. So one of the things he was saying was that you shouldn't go ahead and bench, because if you bench, you enter all these different. And rather, you should stop the meal, right? Take a cup of wine. Either make a hagafen if you didn't during the Seudah, or if you did this during the Seudah, don't make a hagafen and just go straight into the Kaddish Shabbos. And then drink from the wine, meaning put a smapa first before Kiddush. You put a cover on the bread. Then you make then you make a mitzi because you stopped in between the Kiddush and the what's and the thing, right? And the Kiddush is a hefsek between the Seudah and the next bread. Make a mitzi and then just bench once at the end to cover the benching from before. So now, how about now he went ahead and did bench after the time of kiddush comes, and he did bench. Even if he started benching once it became dark, he should not say the Shabbos additions. He should not say in benching. The that since he is making an after bracha on a seudah that he finished in the weekday when it was still the day, so why should he Shabbos? Why should he mention Shabbos in it? However, if he extended his meal into the night, even though you're not supposed to, but he did, whatever it is, either he didn't realize and it became a night and he continued Seudah, or let's just say maybe the Alter Rebbe is leaving room for even if you were a bad boy and you weren't supposed to keep eating, but you did, but now you want to be a good boy because obviously a Jew wants to do tshuva. So now you want to do the right thing, but what do? I already put my stretched my meal into the night. So then Tzarich Lahazkir Shel Shabbos B'Richas Hamazon, and then he does put the Shabbos additions. Afal Pisha Dain LeKiddush, even though he did not make Kiddush yet. Shekvar Chola Olav Kedusha Shabbos Me'eleha, because the holiness of Shabbos already falls on him by himself. In other words, it's not about you made Kiddush, you didn't make Kiddush. It's the time arrived. It's Shabbos, whether you like it or not at that point. And it goes without saying that if he put a cloth and he made kiddush and he finished his meal, that he needs to mention Shabbos in Birchas Hamazon, needs to put the Shabbos insertions. Afilu im hechmir ofeides mapa v'kiddush me'ediem kedem shigazman kiddush. Let's say he was having a meal, and then he stopped and he made kiddush. It wasn't Shabbos yet. In other words, the time for Shabbos hadn't arrived yet, and he went and put a cloth and he made kiddush still during the day. Obviously, after the time which you can technically take Shabbos on yourself. And even his benching is still before night, before sundown. That just like when the time reaches Shabbos, you have to mention it because now the holiness of Shabbos falls on you. So the same thing is going to be that if you said Kiddush, you now accepted Shabbos on yourself. So it's now Shabbos for you, and you do the Shabbos insertions, notes.
Okay. So so right at the top when we say Vim Avar V'Hischol, meaning you started benching after Kiddush arrived, Alter Rebbe uses this. He just brings out that he uses this wording, as we said in the previous sif, that when someone does so, they're consciously entering an area where the halacha is unresolved. Meaning, we should make sure we stay away from such areas where we don't know exactly what's the story. So if someone does it, that's a big problem. Just pointing that out again, using this word avar, like our choices brought us to this situation.
Meaning like before, even if it wasn't by accident, even if he was being a bad boy and did it, then this is what he should do. Because now you want to be a good boy, even though before you want to be a bad boy.
I'm saying by accident, but it's our choices that led us here. So I think that's the point of like.
Well, Ovar seems to even mean like more like he
was amazing
on purpose. Yeah.
No, so I'm saying that's what I think they're noting here.
Right.
That even it was by accident, but
right, because
it was our mistake that led us to this accident. That it's more of an Ovar that we consciously let ourselves enter into a situation where it was dangerous.
Which to me is a beautiful idea because you were being a bad boy, and Alter Rebbe assumes that now you want to be a good boy and do the right thing. So
remember, Tony Friedman said, I'm not going to say all the details, but he said once Rabbi Shmutkin in Milwaukee said with regards to him, playing with the 18 minutes, relying, oh no, there's 18 minutes to Shkia, I have time, like to quickly go to mikveh or something.
Yeah, right.
And Rabbi Shmutkin said, Why would you walk on the edge of a cliff?
Right.
Like, what are you doing tightrope walking? The whole point of 18 minutes is to make sure we don't break Shabbos. Breaking Shabbos is a huge thing. You're going to go, oh, well, no, I got 5 more minutes on the 18 minutes. What are you doing? Like, don't tightrope walking. Yeah, exactly. So this V'avar, it was a mistake that led me here, but it was my choices that led me to the mistake. So what am I doing walking on the edge of a cliff? So I think that's
how I ended up. That's how I ended up with my car parked far away, for a little further from my house. This past Erev Shabbos it was like technically I could have made it home, but it was close enough that I wasn't gonna play. Meaning I would get back within like 3 minutes of Shkia, and I was just like, you know what, leave the car, throw all my stuff in there. I was near, what's it called? Leave my keys, whatever. Fine, and I walk, and that way,
Right. I'd say I have one of those cars that has you can use a keypad, a code to open the door. To me, that's very from Jewish friendly. Because Erev Shabbos, Erev Yom Tov, I can leave my wallet, even if it's my only pair of keys. Just leave them there. There's no schlepping it. I'll leave them there. Leave it wherever. I can start walking. It's fine. Anyway, so then the next note is later. It's basically what we said. Shekvar Chala Allah Shabbos Me'ileh. He has to mention Shabbos and benching, even though he didn't write Kiddush, because the holiness of Shabbos takes effect. It's Shabbos. It doesn't matter you didn't make Kiddush. It's still Shabbos. And as we see later in Kuf Ches 17, it was 7188 Sif 17, that if Friday, let's say, was a Yom Tif, you would be saying both Ritzei, because it was Shabbos, and Yalav Yaveh, because you're dragging the Yom Tov meal into Shabbos. So you're saying both. And it's interesting, that's the example they give, because I remember actually practically the other way also, when it's Shabbos Erev Chodesh. Right. Let's say we were by a Farbrengen, and the Farbrengen went until after Shabbos ended. So we went from Shabbos. It wasn't Shabbos for Chodesh. It was Shabbos Erev Chodesh.
Right.
So we said both Ritzei. I remember it was both Ritzei. and Yalav Yavai for Rosh Chodesh. So it's interesting when it goes that way.
Right, because on the one hand, the Seudah was a Seudah Shabbos. On the other hand, once Rosh Chodesh started, it became and you continue the Seudah, it became a Seudah Rosh Chodesh also.
Right. So now you're eating bread, but the whole thing was you have to if you're still eating. Here it's you're eating. Shabbos comes upon you. It doesn't matter. You didn't make Kiddush. It's Shabbos. Either way, it's Shabbos.
So interestingly, you could have a scenario that if it's not Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Chanukah, but Shabbos Erev Rosh Chodesh Chanukah, you can still have the longest benching if you continue the Seudah into the.
All right.
Okay. Okay, that's all of them.
That's fine. Yeah, that was all of them. I mean, you doubt. Oh,
I almost started this. Two who were drinking after the end of the Seudah, when it's still the day, right? And they said, "Come, let's make Kiddush." Right? So we're talking about it's the day, the Eid Seudah, it's not Shabbos yet. And they say, "Come, let's make Kiddush." Even though the time of Kiddush didn't come, they're not allowed to drink until they make Kiddush. And if they want to, if they
do want to drink more,
they do want to drink, go back and drink. Even though they're not supposed to, but they're going to do it anyway. So what is that? How should they do it the wrong way, the right way, the wrong way? So and you would have to make another agafen. That once you said, let's go make Kiddush, that means that they intended to make Kiddush, even if they didn't, and even if they now have to and they won't, but they removed their intention from the original wine they were drinking, and they put their mind on the wine of Kiddush now. So they have to now make a new hagafen, meaning usually, as we know, if you're drinking the during the Seudah and you say, let's make Kiddush, right? So you wouldn't have to make a hagafen, you would go straight into Mekadesh Shabbos.
Right.
In this case, they would actually, even though he didn't make Kiddush, they would have to make a hagafen because they didn't make Kiddush, because they announced their intent for wine of Kiddush. And now they're drinking not wine of Kiddush. So that's you moved your intention from that. However, if they make Kiddush immediately, so then, just like we said before, it goes back to your continuing agafen. Being the agafen is made before the bracha of Kiddush, so the bracha of Kiddush is not a hefsek for it, and because they are at this point they removed their intent from every cup besides for a cup of Kiddush. So a cup of Kiddush they would not have to make a hagafen on, but any other cup that's not a Kiddush cup you would now have to make a hagafen because you said your intention was to make Kiddush. Notes.
Okay, so first off, right at the beginning, we have this big hey.
Hey, it's like,
well, actually,
hey.
Actually, I think there's a couple notes before the hey. But first of all, they say let's make Kiddush, but in the Kiddush Hayayim, even though it's not Kiddush, basically from Bein Hashmashos onward, even if a person does not make such a statement, you're not allowed to eat Kiddush, eat or drink until you say Kiddush. But we're talking about if it was before that even,
right?
And they can't drink anymore or eat as had, even though the time
I think the Mishnah Berurah says as much also that it must be talking about before Bein Hashmashos, because once Bein Hashmashos is Bein Kasi.
That'd be obvious, yeah. So now, and that's even though the time for Kiddush has arrived. So the Kuntres Achron, which is at note 5, the Alter Rebbe focuses on the statement in the main text, which is based on the Magen Avram, 271:10, excuse me, that from the time one says, let us sanctify the day, he is prohibited to continue eating even if he made the statement while it is still day. He derived this concept from the Rambam's interpretation of Psachim, page 105a, which states that just as Shabbos establishes an obligation to tithe, it establishes an obligation for Kiddush. Rambam understands that quote as referring to a person's statement, let us sanctify the day. From the time a person makes such a statement, he's forbidden to eat anything, even if he makes a statement during the daytime on Friday. The Alter Rebbe also explains this concept does not apply with regards to Abdallah, saying, let's say Havdalah does not necessitate that a blessing be recited over wine drunk after this statement. But saying, let us make Kiddush, sanctify the day, that's different.
Now here's the question: Are we assuming by extension, Chalal of Kiddush, that also Chalal of that means they can't do Malacha, they can't. It's Shabbos for them.
That they took on Shabbos.
They took on Shabbos. He doesn't say it in so many words here.
That's interesting.
But if you're chayav in Kiddush, so it has to be that it's Shabbos for you. Otherwise, why are you chayav Kiddush?
Would, yeah.
In that statement, you accepted Shabbos essentially. It seems to be would be the train of thought here.
Yeah, I'm just like sneaking ahead.
Because what are you gonna do? Make Kiddush and it's not Shabbos. So when does it become Shabbos?
Right. By making Kiddush, you're bringing in Shabbos. That's the whole thing. That's what it seems, that when they say that, they brought on Shabbos to themselves for the
in other words, it's saying we're either obligated in Kiddush at that point. Why? It would seem like Mistama because you've accepted Shabbos on yourself now.
Right. So it would seem, yeah.
Right, L'chura.
I don't know. L'chura, seemingly, yeah.
Anyway, unless you're planning on taking on Shabbos, don't say that.
Yeah, just don't do it. And that's it.
Don't say that.
All right. Tezvav.
Afal pisha also litam kedim kiddush. Even though you're not allowed to taste anything before kiddush, right? Meaning in all the above things we mentioned, whether you accepted Shabbos upon yourself, whether it became Shabbos, you're not allowed to have anything before kiddush. Why? Like we said, that you're supposed to put the kiddush close to the thing, unless you're hungry. In which case, also you still can't eat anything. You're waiting until you eat anything because you're not hungry. If you forgot, you made a mistake, or even on purpose, you went and you ate, right? You're one of the Bain Chavra, you know, and that whatever you ate. Even if he ate a full meal, as soon as he remembers, or as soon as he remembers who he is and why he shouldn't be doing that. Either way, as soon as he remembers or does tshuva, and from the point that he remembers or decides to do tshuva, he cannot eat anything else until he makes kiddush. In other words, this thing of making kiddush, it's not like, oh, you shouldn't taste anything before kiddush, but if you're gotten you ate, continue eating. No, the second like you ate and I didn't make kiddush, so stop, don't eat anymore, and go make kiddush. Or if you did it on purpose, so stop, what am I doing? I need to be a good boy and stop and make kiddush. Even if you did it on purpose by accident, right? Even if you did it on purpose by accident, you still need to go so stop, do tshuva, and make kiddush right away. And you should not make a Bayir Priya Gofen on location Kiddush in Beir Chal Yayin. As we said before, one of the things, even if you drank it during when you're not really supposed to drink it, one of the things you did was you had wine and you had a Gofen before that, right? So then you don't make another Hagafen on this wine. The Chayim Mekadesh Alapat, and so too, like we said before, if you're going to be making the Kiddush on bread, if in the Suda he already made Hamaitzi, he doesn't say the bracha Hamaitzi. Af im Mekadesh ala kais, ein tzarich levarich Hamaitzi ala pas sheichel achar kach, in his bar lemayla. And even if he made Kiddush on a cup, he does not make Hamaitzi on the bread that he eats after this, like explained above. Was that?
What if this happens to somebody that doesn't know the law, and it's what you're talking about, like right, and then they're stuck. I mean, they can make a phone call, but who wants to take a phone call when it's Erev Shabbos? I'm saying, let's say it was somebody like me. I have knowledge, but I don't have the knowledge that you guys have because
now you do.
Wait a minute. Yeah. But yeah, you know what I mean. But let's say this would happen to anyone in the community, anywhere, and they know they have a question because it was an accident, and they go, oh, wait a minute, now what do I do? What do they do if they don't know what to do and they don't have the answer?
That's a good question. That's why every single person.
What did you do? What did you do before you learned this? What we're learning now, or what you guys are learning?
Well,
now?
there was, in my case, there was always. I could ask my tati. I could ask my the rabbi in yeshiva. I could ask.
You
ask the shliach at the place that I was a bacher shliach on. But the bottom line is that's and this is real. This is one of the reasons
you had a life preserver. You had a lifeboat close.
But this is one of the reasons that for doing a podcast like this that's informational about learning about the concepts of Shabbos, because it's not an excuse. I don't know. In other words, every Jew is capable of knowing, and we need to sit and listen. Shabbos. So I'll give you an example. If you were going to have to fly a plane. Are you going to say, what do I do if I don't know how to fly a plane? No, if you know you're going to be flying a plane in a year from now, you're going to spend the next year learning your tuchasaf to make sure you know how to fly a plane, right? You're not going to. So how much more so? Like flying a plane, so you'll crash. Maybe you'll get hurt. Maybe you'll die a little bit. But Shabbos, but Shabbos. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's why we gotta put the time in, and we need to know these things. We Shabbos is not just something for Rabbanim. When you talk about the laws of business disputes, okay, well that's something that's for Rabbanim. When you talk about even a lot of other laws that is more a question for Rabbanim. When you talk about for example the halachas of what to do in a shul. Right. Okay. Again, this is something that there's a rav in the shul. Some shuls don't necessarily have that minhag, but I don't think it's such a good thing. And bichlal a kehila of any sort has to have somebody who's able to paskin halachis. But Shabbos is all of us. That means if I'm in Yehudatzville on a Shabbos, I need to know what to do.
Right.
So it's incumbent upon all of us. Every one of us to spend whatever time we're able to, and better learn the Hilchos Shabbos, so that when these things happen, we'll know what to do.
A lot to learn.
There is.
If I was a convert, and I would, and if somebody is a convert,
gotta learn it, right?
Or they're not a convert, they're thinking about it, and if they would find out how much there is. They'd say, "Whoa!"
So they actually have to learn. Generally speaking, they have to learn at least the basics of Hilchos Shabbos before they'll even be. That's one. The conversion process takes a while. And one of the reasons is there's certain halachas like your basic concept of kashrus and your basic concept of Shabbos that before you can even. In other words, look, if you're born a Jew and you don't have a choice. So you have to what is it called learn in the fire, what do they call it? They throw you in the fire and you got, in other words, you're there, you're
right.
But if you're coming to convert, why would they convert you and make you obligated in the mitzvahs that you don't know how to do yet? That's why the process it takes long, because no, you're gonna have to keep Shabbos. So why convert when you don't know that yet, and then you're gonna do an aveira when you don't have to learn the halachas first and now convert.
Right.
So that's part of the difference. A Jew, listen, whether you even know the mitzvahs or not, you're still chayiv in them. You're still obligated. So so start learning. We start learning right now, all of us, because all of us need to learn halachas better, and that includes the Jew who's never seen a Hebrew letter before, and that includes the greatest rabbi and posek in Hilchos Shabbos. All of us need to learn Hilchos Shabbos better.
So the day is short and the work is long, so let's get moving.
Yeah.
Real quick. Yesterday, when you were talking about the commandments, and I've heard this many a times about there's X amount of positive commandments, and then some people refer to the other ones as the negative commandments.
Yeah.
I always thought it was the positive commandments and the prohibitive commandments versus negative.
Oh, well, maybe, or you can call them the positive commandments and the positively don't do them commandments. So, anyway, right there. So he's saying here that, like you said before, even if you made kiddush on even if you made kiddush on the wine, you still do not make hametzi on the bread, like is explained above. I seem to remember that you just wouldn't make birchas hamazon. That's how I seem to remember it.
Sorry, just had to switch headphones there. What'd you say, Mendel?
He's saying that even if you made kiddush on wine, you should not make another hamaitzi. Right, but I seem to, as explained above, but I seem to remember it different. I seem to remember him saying don't bench, but hamaitzi.
The end of Yud Aleph. How do we conclude? As an initial.
Yeah. Well, no, he was talking by Tnulon of Hezradas. So he was talking by benching. Maybe no, he's talking about something else. Here, no. His main opinion, Taka, is really you should make a bracha, another bracha hamaitzi. And what he said, but in the end, he said, however, being that there are valid opinions that you should not, and that the Seudah combines, and even if you make Kiddush, you should not make Hamaitzi, being that there is such a valid opinion, and brachas and suffix brachas lahakil, that by a doubt of brachas, you go to the lenient. So therefore, you should not make another bracha Hamaitzi, even though he spent up like several paragraphs basically explaining why you should make hamaitzi if you had the hefsek of kiddush and why it's a hefsek, right? And why, even though say davening isn't a hefsek, kiddush is a hefsek. So therefore, you should make a bracha hamaitzi. But then in the end, he says that there are those that argue on this, and being that that by a doubt of brachas, you go lenient, so you don't make hamaitzi. And then in the end, he said that. Therefore, don't get into this problem in the first place. But that was his final thing. Was that even though he holds primarily that really you should, but since there are valid opinions that hold that you don't, so therefore you don't. Fine. Notes. I think, yeah.
What?
Oh no. I still have another paragraph. I still have more paragraphs. Oh, a bunch more paragraphs. If he remembers after he finished his meal, he does not have to eat again after Kiddush. So he doesn't have to eat more, so that the place of the Su'udah of Shabbos, right? Like we said, that the Su'udah of Shabbos is supposed to be connected to the Kiddush, and it should be after it. Right? He said in this case, if he finished this, he doesn't have to do that. Why? Because the Kevan Sha'achla Su'udah Mishemichoshecha Shabbos, since his Su'udah, even though he started it before Shabbos, but it drew out into Shabbos, or in the case that he says that somebody went in this case, either in that case of the last sif, or in this case where it was Shabbos already and he went ahead and started the Su'udah on Shabbos. In either case, being that his Su'udah is going now after Shabbos entered, it's called the Suda Shabbos. Kiddush came to the Shabbos. So he actually made Kiddush in a place of the Suda Shabbos. Because he did have a Suda Shabbos, even though, again, the proper way to do it is to have the Suda Shabbos after, right, the Shabbos meal after Kiddush. However, this is still called the Shabbos meal. And if he already finished the Suda, he doesn't have to make another Suda. Now, what happens if you remember, right? You have your hamaitzi, you have your lechem mishnah, right? You set up your Shabbos table beautifully, and you got so excited to make hamaitzi that you forgot you didn't make Kiddush yet. I'm so excited. Shabbos Baruch Hashem hamaitzi lechem in haaretz, and he's getting ready to eat the pieces of bread. And he's I didn't make Kiddush yet. He doesn't say that because you can't say that in between the bracha and eating bread. But in his brain says to his brain, "Hey, I didn't make Kiddush yet. We didn't make Kiddush yet."
Now what?
So lo yekadish ala yayin. He should not make Kiddush on wine. V'yitzarich litem me'apas kedim Kiddush, because then that would force him into eating bread before Kiddush. Because I just made a bracha. The next thing after this bracha I have to eat the bread.
Right.
So if I make kiddush, I just made a hefsek between. So now my bracha, I wasted the bracha. We don't waste brachas.
So what? He has to finish the
Right.
bracha.
So what do you do? Ella yekadish ala pas. So we should then just continue, being that you're allowed to make kiddush on bread. In which case, after your hamaitzi, you wouldn't eat the bread; you would go straight into the bracha of kiddush. So if you if you remembered at that point that you didn't make kiddush, instead of making kiddush on wine, just continue Baruch Ata Hashem, Asher Kiddishanu, B'mitzvos V'Ratzabanu, etc. Mekadesh Shabbos. Finish, and just do kiddush on the bread.
Well, you'd start at Yom HaShishi, right?
Well, no, you didn't, but you don't have to. You can the Yom HaShishi you can complete later. You can just say it during the meal. It's not actually; it's an addition. It's not really part of the kiddush itself. The kiddush itself is hagafen or hamaitzi if you don't have a hagafen, and the bracha of kiddush. So, being that you just made a hamaitzi, you wouldn't make yom hashishi because the yom hashishi would now be an interruption between your bread and your. That's why we say yom hashishi before the bracha of hagafen or hamaitzi, because it would be an interruption between. So you made your hamaitzi. So now. And now, I didn't make kiddush. What do? Baruch Ata Hashem, etc., Mekadesh Shabbos. Make the kiddush bracha and then take a bite. And like this, it was a valid kiddush on bread rather than making a bracha levatala on bread and stopping in between. And even if he doesn't have two breads, and he has to wait until why do you make a hamaitzi without having two breads in front of him? That maybe it'll be in the note. Unless he's still going based on the same situation, is that I wasn't making what he called, but rather I was just making hamaitzi for this su'udah that I'm not supposed to do, that I'm doing anyway. Maybe. This is not an interruption. Why? I'm assuming because the bringing of bread is part of the thing. It's associated with the thing. It's not a separate thing. He's still involved in it. Even if he has to talk and tell them, hey guys, bring me lechem mishnah. This is also not an interruption. Why? Because it's for the need of the seudah, of this hamaitzi. So it's not an interruption between the hamaitzi. It's something you need to do for the hamaitzi. The commission is bar b'simin kuf samach zayin. Needless to say, this is not the ideal way to talk in between hamaitzi, even with tzedek hasuda. But that's okay. And into the notes, and maybe he'll explain what the situation was in that last paragraph a little bit better.
So just quickly in the notes. So first we go back to the whole paragraph, the whole parentheses, the imniskar. So if he remembered after completing the meal, he doesn't have to eat anything more after kiddush. Right? So this whole ruling applies when he recites kiddush directly after his meal. If there's an interval before he remembers. So if he benches, then he gets up and leaves the room. So then and then he comes back to make kiddush. Then he would have to eat a kazayas portion of bread after reciting kiddush, and that's from the Mishnah Berurah, 289.10.
Okay,
I'm guessing because 289, I think, is one of the areas the Alter Rebbe is. We don't have that. But yeah, okay. So then moving on. So we got into. So if you remembered. He has this hamaitzi. He says hamaitzi lachem and aretz. He's about to take a bite and then remembers, whoops, I didn't make kiddush yet. So you should make kiddush on it because otherwise he would make it in vain. Meaning, it says, if he recites the bracha bar piragafen. Oops, sorry, I bumped my mouse. Okay, if he recites the bracha bar piragafen and has some of the wine, he'll have made an interruption between saying the bracha hamaitzi and eating bread. He'll have said bar piragafen and have wine in between. And that would cause the bracha to be considered to have been recited in vain. Should, however, recite the kiddush bracha after the bracha hamaitzi before partaking of the bread. And when reciting kiddush in this situation, he should not recite the passage of Yom HaShishi, like Rav Mendel correctly said. And then, if he doesn't really have a note explaining. He says if he doesn't have 2 loaves of bread, he says as required for the Shabbos meal. See section 274.2. I don't think over there it explains either. I think what we're talking about here is he didn't say hamaitzi as a Shabbos meal. I think this guy just went and washed, and he was just going to have a slice of bread. There was some bread on the table.
Right.
He went to wash. But now he realized, I should make kiddush. Oh, Shabbos meal.
And he remembers, meaning we're still continuing the same conversation as before, that he made a su'udah And then if he remembers at this time, do this. If he remembers at this time, do that. And if he remembers at the time after he made a hamaitzi, then do that.
No, but this is what I'm saying. It's not a hamaitzi for a Shabbos Suda.
Right, but I think it would apply the same way to if you forgot.
Yeah.
In other words, let's say we're
I'm just saying that's why he then says, and if he has to bring 2 loaves, like your question was, well, wait, why doesn't have 2 lechem mishnah in front of him? Yeah, because we're talking about he's stam. He's at a sheva brachas. There's pre-made sandwiches, or it's hamburgers, or it's sliced bread, whatever. He wasn't washing. It wasn't saying hamaitzi because he was doing lechem mishnah for Shabbos.
Right,
he was doing it stam to eat bread, and then
he realized
I need to make kiddush. And I need lechem mishnah for that. So even though he said Hamaitzi lechem min haaretz, not just on Tilas Yadayim, but Hamaitzi lechem min haaretz, he can go, no, lechem mishnah.
Right.
Lechem mishnah, please.
Yeah.
Okay. And then and he can wait the amount of time for someone to get, I'll go get from the kitchen, or I'll go get from the basement.
Right.
Whatever.
It's all the Suda.
It's all part of the Suda. So much he can say. Please, I mean, you want to minimize it, which is why you see sometimes you'll see by people who wash Netilas Yadayim and stuff, they're like salt. They don't say, please pass me the salt. They try to minimize whatever words they can. But if you need to say full sentences, and say, can you please go downstairs?
Right.
Call the person by name.
Right. And then the guy tells him, I'll run over to Giant Eagle and grab some. He says, you can't. It's Shabbos already. The guy says, I can. I'm a guy. He says, but then you're my shliach. The guy tells him, no, ain't shlichus l'guy. So that whole conversation is all part of his trying to get the lechem mishnah for this hamaitzi. So it's fine.
Yeah. I think it's best, if he has some friends there, for them to jump in and fill all that other stuff in, because the less he speaks,
which is interesting, by the way. He has to. Which is very, very interesting because generally speaking, we make the hamaitzi on lechem mishnah.
Yeah.
In this case, he made the hamaitzi already.
Right. He wasn't holding lechem mishnah.
He wasn't. Meaning he didn't have lechem mishnah. So I guess. It's
not a problem.
I guess it works.
Which, by the way, I wonder. So that's very interesting because, but he's still going to say the bracha of kiddush, mekadosh, and Shabbos on the lechem mishnah. So I wonder. Yeah, we'll get to this when we learn lechem mishnah, hopefully, and hopefully I'll remember this question.
So maybe
what if, for example, it's a regular Shabbos. It's not this whole funny situation. It's just a regular Shabbos. He goes to Meitz Hamaitzi lechem min haaretz, and he goes to cut it, and then before cutting it, he notices it wasn't lechem mishnah the whole time.
Yeah,
there was. His kid took a bite. So is the importance of lechem mishnah? Should he then go and swap these challahs out for lechem mishnah? According say go get, or is this thing where say go get me lechem mishnah? Is that only important because he didn't have and he can still make a bracha over it?
So in that case,
on regular Shabbos, he already made no other bracha. Yeah,
he already made kiddush,
and there's no other bracha he's going to be making on this thing. It's just a matter of eating bread now, slicing up and eating bread. So is it important though to even just
but then again think about this in shul, you make kiddush,
yeah,
you eat a piece of cake. Then you go home and you eat lechem mishnah. You didn't make kiddush over that lechem mishnah. You made hamaitzi over that lechem mishnah.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is the Indian that there be something done, a bracha be made over lechem mishnah, or is the Indian that no, I should cut into a lechem mishnah?
According to this, at least certainly on a b'diavad level, it would seem that. But then again, but in this case, he made
the
kiddush on it.
Shabbos. Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying. You can't tell from here because this la bracha. That's what I'm saying. We'll see.
So maybe the Indian is that when you make kiddush al hapas, it has to be lechem mishnah. In this scenario,
we'll see.
I'm saying in this scenario, it's there's the idea that let's forget lechem mishnah when you're making kiddush on wine, because then I could say what happens in shul. I didn't make kiddush on the lechem mishnah. But and etc. What if I already said the thing and now is it about cutting it? So at the very least, what we see here is when you make kiddush on bread, then it is very important that bread be lechem mishnah. That's what you see. Yeah,
no, but I mean, listen, b'chalal we already learned. We did definitely learn already that b'chal lechem mishnah is not about making kiddush on lechem mishnah. It's about having lechem mishnah for the suda.
No, but I'm saying, right. But when you make kiddush on it, it needs to be lechem mishnah.
Well, no, kiddush is supposed to be.
There's another thing you have to have lechem mishnah.
Now, when you're saying you're making kiddush on challah, that is going to be the suda. So that suda bread should be lechem mishnah.
Has to be lechem mishnah, yeah.
I don't know that B'dafka the kiddush has to be on lechem mishnah. It's just that practically you're making kiddush on the challah that is makim suda.
That is lechem mishnah,
of course
right?
It's going to be lechem mishnah.
No, right.
But,
So I'm saying it's not that you have to make kiddush on lechem mishnah.
So that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's
I don't know, and
but when the kiddush is itself the lechem the challah, then it has to be lechem mishnah.
It's going to be lechem mishnah, but
yeah.
Anyway, whatever. We'll see when we get there. Okay.
Okay. Even though it is the best way to do the mitzvah is to make kiddush right before Shabbos comes in. However, the mitzvah extends the entire night, and like we said before, that even the chatchila, if you're not hungry, you can push it off because it's more important that you enjoy the Suda than that you make it right away by Shabbos. However, what happens in Shachach, if he either accidentally or purposely, he did not make Kiddush Balayla, he did not make Kiddush at night. He can make up for it the next day, the entire day, meaning on Shabbos day. He should say the entire Kiddush of night, meaning what? He does not say Vayichulu Hashemayim V'Arzuchot Zavam. He doesn't say meaning Yom HaShishi. She'ein inyan la'omer b'yom, because there is no point in saying Vayichulu Hashemayim in the day. Why? Because Yom HaShishi was the 6th day. Vayichulu Hashemayim V'Aretz, and he finished the heavens and the earth. It was at night that it was the finishing of his work. He didn't say already in the day. He was done for a while now. Already he was done making the world, and he already had kiddush. He already had his chalent. He already, so his finishing of work was by the night, and therefore we don't say vayichulu. So what would you say? You would say Baruch Atah Be'er Pi'agafen, and then you would additionally say Asher Kiddushan Mitzvesav, etc., Mekadosh Shabbos, which you usually do not say during the day. You just say Hagafen. I mean, there's a preceding things that you say.
Al-Kain.
Al-Kain, but it says therefore Hashem bless the Shabbos.
That's a Dirabanan versus
right, but you say Be'er Pi'agafen. You do not continue with Asher Kiddushan Mitzvesav, etc., Mekadosh Shabbos. So in this case, you would say that he's not saying do you make another kiddush now for the day?
Hold on. So interesting. Well, first of all, I just want to say, there's a note. Let's see, is there one on the day? Does it see that? I don't know. Hold on. Well, it's a good question. Do you make the separate kiddush? I don't know, but it's interesting
because if you don't make a second kiddush, then it's very easy. Because the whole preceding part is not a
no.
So you can say Vishamru, you can say all that.
This note, based on this note, no. So let me read the note. Okay.
Yeah.
The Alter Rebbe. So first of all, he says that as we see before in Pesachtiv 107a, the Alter Rebbe states a similar law with regards to kiddush on Yom Tovim over in 473.3. But basically, in such an instance, what you do, the setup is, when you're making kiddush at the daytime meal, you say the preliminary readings for the day. So you go and say the Mizmor David and Vishamru and
the whole
and Zachar and similarly, and then Al-Kain, Beirei Pri Hagafen,
and then
the bracha for kiddush usually recited Friday night. So that clearly says no.
Okay, so then right. So what you're doing is you don't make two kiddushim. What you do is you say your regular daytime kiddush, and then after it you add the bracha mekadosh Shabbos.
Part,
beautiful,
which is mekadosh.
Okay, that's very clear.
So there's the
perfect.
Answer, and that's the only note.
Okay, Yud Zayin. Afal Pisha Shulchan Sarich Lius Archim Sudim Beidiyim Commission is Bar B'Simin Reish Samach Base. Even though the table must be set and organized when it is still day, like it is explained in 262. At the same time, you do not bring it to the place of the meal until after Kiddush. Meaning you have it prepared and everything. You can have your plates and everything, but the actual food you would not bring to the table. So that it should be recognized that it is for the honor of Shabbos, right?
My shviger does, for example, she has all the salads and fish and dips and everything. It's all prepared, but it's on the island in the kitchen.
We have similar.
Just
we don't have an island, but we were makdish the piano for that purpose. And I actually I've never seen it used as a piano. It's just a fancy it's a multi-tiered Shabbos dip table.
Mitzad Hilchas Muktzeh, then it's great because then that whole thing is not Muktzeh. It's right. A table.
But yeah, so we do the same thing with the and everything's on the piano and then it comes over. At night, anyways. And if he brought it before Kiddush, he has to cover it. And by the way, I've seen this done also.
Meaning because I've seen it to do with bread or a mezainis.
Yeah, I've seen in shuls this done where there's a Kiddush, whatever it is, and they want to put all this stuff on and everything covered with napkins, and then or sometimes a big tablecloth, another tablecloth.
I've seen, a big disposable tablecloth just over the entire table. And then after Kiddush, the whole thing gets pulled and there's the whole setup Kiddush, desserts and everything.
So making it as if it wasn't there until after Kiddush, so that it is now shown that it's being brought in honor of Shabbos. Now that we made Kiddush, let's bring all this food for this Uda or uncover.
By the way, for those that have good memories, this you should remember that this is and was one of the three reasons in general of why we cover the bread, was so that this would happen. That it because we want this thing where like the challah is brought exclusively for the meal. Remember, there are two other reasons of the man and the embarrassment, but specifically this reason goes for bread and all other food. But
however, it only goes at night. That reason. It doesn't go by the day. That reason. That reason only applies at night.
The stuff should just be brought. What do you mean?
Yeah. In other words, the reason of man applies. If anything, you could say the man applies even more during the day. Right. That reason. The reason of the busha of the bread applies. Right. The reason it's tasty suda. It's a yikar de Shabbos. Is actually only applies by night, not by the day. It only applies by the nighttime Kiddush.
When did you see that? I missed that. I don't remember that.
That's it's only by night.
It said it with Mechaber?
Yikar de Shabbos is only by night.
It's only by night.
Close it up.
So you're saying this also? What I'm saying now is only by night?
I don't know if he's saying exactly the same thing here or not. If he's talking about Yikar de Shabbos, that's the same reason is this thing that he's saying is because if you remember he says the Alter Rebbe, he says this about what do you call it? He brought this at a different point, I think also.
Yeah, he brought it up later. Well, not he quoted this basically. He said later we'll see. But this is the later.
Anyways, so we'll continue and we'll see if it's in the notes or if it's in the. But when is this said? Be mayhem in their days. Meaning in the days of the Gemara. That each person had a little table. It was like a little tiny restaurant. Each person or a couple of people or whatever it was had a table in front of them. And it wasn't a big bother for them to bring their own stuff to their table. However, now that our tables are big with and it's a big bother
I think the Alter Rebbe is saying the actual tables. Meaning, back in the day, they had small tables of food, so it wasn't a big deal to just pick up your table and bring
move the table in front of me.
Yeah, right. But now we have big tables, schlepping tables between rooms. Happening. That would be a hefsek.
Yeah, right. And so it's very hard to bring these tables until after, and then you're making a pause between Kiddush and a meal, which, as we know, you're not supposed to make a pause between the Kiddush and the meal. Rather, you're supposed to go straight from Kiddush immediately into the meal. So the minhag is to bring the tables. It should be set in front of you before Kiddush. And to put a cloth and cover the bread until after Kiddush. Whether he is making Kiddush on a wine, or even if he's making Kiddush on the bread.
Right.
Like we know that I think he's going to say it. There also has to be a cloth on under the bread on the table. So it should be between two cloths. I think a cutting board might also qualify as a cloth in this case. It has to be covered from the bottom and covered from the top. I don't know that they necessarily used cutting boards in those days the way we do. In fact, they probably had them, especially in times of the Gemara, where they probably have flatbreads more so than like Right. I believe don't quote me on this. Ask your local Rav. I believe a cutting board is also qualifies as a cloth below, meaning it has to be covered below, not directly on the table. And one on top of one below, in memory of the mun, right? The manna, the shahaya olav tal milmaylu v'tal milmata, that had do above and do below. So he's bringing actually two things. There's to the one was when he's making kiddush on wine. There's actually another reason, which he doesn't say yet here, but it's because the wine shouldn't have busha from the bread shouldn't have busha from the wine. Meaning the bread is usually a bracha that comes before the bracha of a guffin. So since you're making the lesser bracha of a guffin before the one of bread, you cover the bread to show respect for the higher bracha.
Interestingly, the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring it. He only brings the two reasons.
He doesn't bring it. He does not bring it.
Interesting to point that out. Anyway, he
brings out the thing of Zeichel Amon.
Zeichel Amon, and Bechlal that the food should be brought on its own, not before Kiddush. It should be just suddenly brought.
By the way, which is interesting because in other places the Alter Rebbe seems very clearly to be leaning into the reason of the bushas yayin a lot more so than the mun. But anyways, here he's saying the reason of the mun. Yeah. Okay. Notes.
So, hold on. This note actually. See, this is why we should get into notes before we get into our discussions, because questions could be answered. So it says, he should spread a cloth over the bread until after Kiddush, even whether he's making Kiddush on wine or bread. Since the Alter Rebbe mentions the possibility of reciting Kiddush over bread, he does not cite a third reason for covering the challah to avoid shaming the bread by reciting the blessing over the wine and Kiddush before reciting the bracha over the bread, which usually enjoys precedence. So he does mention that rationale later in section in Siman 299, Seif 14, with regards to Havdalah, and in section 473-44 in Yom Tif, but with regards to the blessings recited over a cup of wine at the Seder, like it's Yunivahara. So because we're talking about the fact that he might be making challah he might be making kiddush on said challah. So of course there's no embarrassment. The challah is going to be embarrassed in front of itself. No, there's no embarrassment. It is challah. Okay, now. Right. In addition, there should be a cloth under the bread, and he brings up a note. This is bring our makom to this, but whoever compiled this English version says that usually the challahs are placed on a cutting board or the like, and this would take place of the cloth below. Alternatively, and this is a question I meant to ask for in a different class, ask another Rav about it, but he says right here, the tablecloth that covers the entire table also serves this function.
Meaning being that there is a covering.
So if you aren't, I've seen people who try to be very particular. If they're at like a meal and there's just like rolls on the table for everyone to have their own melech mishnah, they'll make sure to put a plate underneath it. But according to this, I don't know exactly where he gets this from, but he's saying the tablecloth also covers it. It just shouldn't be directly on the table. But if there's any sort of mat or tablecloth or whatever, that's fine.
Certainly, though, a cutting board is.
But he's saying cutting board.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure. With no question, and even a tablecloth, if you don't have it, a cutting board is also fine. Okay.
And now, and that's it. The other one is just the marmakum.
Okay. Yuches?
Chai pizza pie. What time are we going to?
So at least a little more. Let's try to at least get through like I don't know.
So it's an even number.
Yeah, let's try. Chai. Facial kiddush ben shalayla ben shal yom ben shal avdallah tone called the bottom tone kiddush samazin. So the cup of kiddush at the night and the cup of kiddush in the day, and as well as the cup of wine for Havdalah. They need all the things that is required by the Chaton Keshel Birchas Hamazon that the benching cup requires. Meaning, what are they? Sheyeh Shalim, it should be complete, should be whole. Sheishtefenu mibachutz, he should wash it from the outside and the inside also to Yadiach is Yishtef. Yadiach is usually a little bit more than Yishtef even. Like give it a good wash. And it should be filled with wine on all of its sides. It should be completely filled to the top, all the way to the tippy top of the wine. Pagum. The wine should not be blemished, meaning it should not have been drunken from, right? So that is more. You pick it up with two hands, but then you put it into your right hand. And it needs to be raised a tefach, which is about a tefach from above the table. He should look at it. He should look at it so he doesn't remove his mind from it. There's a note in the Mishnah Brura, I think it is that if he needs to look in his siddur, so as not to because he needs to look in his siddur for the words, that's also fine. Both because so he should be able to say the Kiddush, and also because essentially he's not really removing his mind from it because he's saying the Kiddush from the book. So obviously not removing your mind from it, as well as what's better to do probably even when you're doing it from a Kiddush is at least that the wine is somewhere in your peripheral vision. So
like we said,
don't do that. Don't do a Statue of Liberty.
You can hold the bencher, hold the cup in front of the bencher so you can see it, but it's still
we're both
as well as that right before you say Baruch Gafen, take a pause, look at the wine, then look back to your siddur, so you can try to have
as well as you should really do it when you start the Yom HaShishi, look at the candles and look at the wine.
The candles, but do that
and then the wine.
You say the words.
He said I should look at the wine also. Yeah. Right, but look at the candles, so now, look at the wine, and then Yom HaShishi.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So now we're going to go back to some notes quickly.
Wait, we didn't finish it, I don't think.
No, that was it.
Was that it? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it. You're right.
So, first of all, whole. Now, it's interesting. Yeah, whole, not pogrom, whole. What does that mean? The cup itself should be unbroken. And later in 183, Sif Dalid, the Alter Rebbe offers this is one of the interpretations of the requirements that the cup of wine be alive, quote unquote. Significantly, he offers other interpretations of this requirement in that source. But yeah, the cup should be whole. So, which is why there's a whole argument about plastic cups. That plastic, maybe it's not considered a whole cup because they're so easily broken.
Or for sure, paper cups are for sure looked at as a little bit.
Paper cups, plastic cups, but it's also different if it has a crack in it. But also, you have some plastic cups.
A plastic cup, right? It's part of it is that a plastic cup is usually thrown out. So when we say a plastic cup, that means specifically disposable plastic cups,
right? So
as opposed to a plastic cup that's usually washed and put back. It's fine.
Squishable, whatever cups. Is it really a whole cup when it just can fall apart? It could be just chucked in the garbage. So whatever. So the whole discussion is about that, and maybe that's one of the reasons why you see sometimes people do two cups to make it more significant, that it's more of a sturdy cup, so it's this considered whole.
No, the thing which so far nobody has spoken.
Lots of people say they haven't seen it.
It seems like it comes from the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know which. But because it seems to be something that started with Bachim from Eretz Yisrael, and that the Rabbanim Eretz Yisrael, they said that well, at least it gives more chashivus. Why two disposable cups is more chashiv? So I don't know. Maybe you're less. Maybe if you put the two together, I don't know. You're less likely to throw it. I don't know.
Won't break.
It's a weird one.
So it's sturdier. That's what I'm saying. That's what I saw. Someone explained it's not the shalom thing because with two it won't break.
I asked the Rav from your area about this because he tends to know these little things.
What do you mean, my area?
The Rav in your area.
What's my area?
Your area, where you live.
Northern California.
No, where you live, Greenfield. Yeah. And because he tends to know these kinds of things, kind of little things.
You're saying on this side of Greenfield?
Yeah, by you,
Rabbi Baskin.
No. It's, don't go installing new Ravs here.
I don't know what you're talking about. You mean Rabbi Friedman?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he tends to know these kind of like things that were
things. Yeah.
Anyway, so he said he's sided by Bachman from Eretz Yisrael. And he asked them.
So that's where you got that from.
And he asked them, "What's this? What is this thing for? Like what?" By the way, he said he himself doesn't understand it. Navdaf doesn't make much sense.
And a lot of Rabbanim
sense
they don't understand.
But he said that apparently it seems like it's something that comes from the Rabbanim Eretz Yisrael or some Rabbanim Eretz Yisrael who felt that it was a Rav in Eretz Yisrael also. I don't know.
Yeah,
that felt that it lends. more
honestly,
chashivas to it or something.
The way broken telephone goes sometimes could be a Rav and Yisrael once said it in a joking way and people took him seriously. You never
Yeah, maybe add 2 cups.
But yeah, why don't you add a second one for just
right.
leave me?
Anyway,
they went and
anyway, it's
so
still unclear where
on.
it came from, but you're not hurting the Kiddush either if that's your thing.
I just wanted to point out that this requirement for those that have the question of why some people say it's because of this, but either way, it's got to be whole, which means if you have a metal Kiddush cup even, but if it's busted a little bit, that's a problem.
Yeah,
you have to ask a Rav, is this still considered is this fall under Shalem? I've seen it, dented Kiddush cups. They fall in something in a dishwasher, whatever. Yeah, cracked something. Yeah, you got to make sure it's still considered whole. Washed out from within and its outer surface rinsed. So the Alter Rebbe counts those as separate requirements in 183. So it's 2 different things to make sure that it's rinsed, the outside is rinsed, and the inside is washed and dried well. Now fill the wine to capacity, fill it all the way up. In 183.4, the Alter Rebbe talks about the concerns over the cup being overly full and the wine spilling over. Now, the prevailing Lubavitch custom is to fill the cup to the extent that it overflows. My 3-year-old son Mendel always says, overflowing, regardless of the size of the cup. So placing a plate beneath the cup alleviates any concerns for spillage and the disgrace it might cause, which I think is the concern that the Alter Rebbe brings up in 183. So one need not be concerned for the waste caused by the spillage because it's symbolic of and a medium for divine blessing. So it's not a waste. It has a purpose. As such, the wine is considered as being used for a worthy purpose and not as having been wasted. And you can see more about this in Teres Menachem, the year 5742, Tafshim Membeis, volume 3, page 1692. Hang on. Okay, not pogum. So its contents hadn't been drunk from beforehand. We see 182.47 where the Alter Rebbe discusses this factor and how to correct it if it has been drunk, like we learned in Mishabura or whatever, adding more, etc. Now you receive it with both hands and then put it in the right hand alone while you make the actual Kiddush. So 183.7, the source clarifies that a left-handed person should hold the cup in his left hand because for him that hand is equivalent to the right hand. Now, Sefer Minhagim prescribes, say, how exactly do you do this? The filled cup is picked up by the right hand, passed to the left hand, then lowered into the palm.
So when you pass it to the left
hand,
that's the point where you're holding it with both hands.
Right. Both hands, then passed into the palm of the right hand, where you want to simulate a vessel. So the 4 fingers being raised and the thumb on the side, resting to one side. The Kiddush is recited standing, and the cup is held at least 3 tfachim, which is approximately 12 inches above the tablecloth.
Oh, right.
See that you got it here first. The visual guide for how to properly hold the Kiddush.
No, I knew that.
Where do you have such a thing?
No, I knew that you had to hold the Kiddush cup so high when you're making Kiddush. I did know that.
So the height is one thing, but more importantly, it's got to be in both hands at a certain point. The whole thing about passing to the other hand is not just a nice thing we do. It's necessary. That's what we're talking about. That's necessary.
Right. Not everybody does that.
Well, now they do.
Anyway, so well, we'll see about that. I don't know.
I've been to houses in the 30 years.
Well, yeah, but there are a lot of people who make mistakes about a lot of things. So the question is it not everyone does that because of a minhag, or is it because there's lack of knowledge? I don't know everyone's minhag.
You're right.
But
that's the Chabad. That's the Chabad minhag and how we do it, anyways.
It's definitely Chabad minhag.
Yeah.
It's definitely Chabad, not just minhag, but halacha. It seems now that I'm saying straight up, and I think it might be more than just Chabad. I'm pretty sure it's a universal one, but yeah, who knows? So. And lifting it up, the next one says to lift up at least a tefach, which we also just saw in the note. It should really be 3 tefachim, but at least 1 tefach off the table.
Right, but I'm saying the part about the finger having it all the way in the palm with the fingers.
Oh, yeah, that's
and the thumb against it. I don't know if that's a. I don't know. I'm not sure what his mucker is in there. But that's minhag Chabad. I don't know if it...
that's not universal. In fact, which is why you'll see Lubavitchers, if the only cup they have is one with a stem glass, you'll see Lubavitchers are holding it from the bottom of the stem because it's the way we do it. Versus other
even though by the way, there's a thing I'll pick Kabbalah. Dafka not to use a stem. Besides for that, it's awkward that way. There's actually a thing I'll pick Kabbalah. Why not to use a stem and what's considered a stem? It's the whole. So if we're able to. We try to do without a stem at all. But then again, if your option is a paper cup and a glass cup with a stem, it's better you do the glass cup because the paper cup is questionable if you can do Kiddush on. The glass cup, fine, there's an I'll pick up all the thing, but it's kosher for Kiddush. It's a sholim, it's a proper glass. So
anyway, so then got to lift it off at least one tefach off the table. Like we said in the note before, our minhag is 3 tefachim off the table, and the last one being that you should look at it and not to put his attention
from it. 3 tefachim is what, about a foot or so, I would say. No,
he said 12 inches. Yeah, he said 12 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now moving forward, you should look at it, the cup, not necessarily the wine. Look at the kais. So meaning, so not necessarily the wine, as we see in 183.9, as we'll see later. And not divert his attention from it, as we explained later in 183. Now, in Siman 183, the Alter Rebbe outlines these 10 requirements, which we actually just mentioned, I think 9, but he outlines 10 requirements for the cup of wine over which benching is recited. Significantly, there he mentions 2 other requirements: that the cup be adorned, and that one robe oneself when reciting the bracha. Here he also includes the requirement that the wine be unblemished, which he includes in section 182, but not as one of the 10 requirements mentioned in 183. Also, he mentions the requirements in a different order as he does there. So it's interesting is by benching, it's very important to make sure you're wearing kapata or whatever. Like Kiddush, not necessarily as important, seemingly. Not that it doesn't mention it.
Even though kocha nohug b'derech klal.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying, if you want to quickly make Kiddush, another, let's say, like I take off my hat and jacket and my hat and kapata. I should say,
and say somebody walked in, you have to make Kiddush.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I take it off right after bench. After I make hamaitzi, I have some challah, then I take it off. Now, someone comes late to my meal. I don't have to. I might say usually do, but anyway. So moving on, your tests.
I think this is actually a good place because I have to start preparing to go to the next year.
So we're up to your test.
The next year, same place, about 45 minutes.
Same online channel.
Same online channels, I'm not going to be here in this room. I'm going to be somewhere else using with a different computer. I'll be in the shul. And it'll be the third part of the Maimer of Atat Tetzaveh. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it, and that way we'll have it in time for Gimel Tammuz Abba Aleinu L'Teva. All right, Ira, I'll see you at 10.
Rabbi Welton.
Yeah.
Thanks for sending me that background picture. But since you did it, you switched and you put another one up there now.
I got lots of pictures. I'm going to switch and do a different picture, I think, every time.
You see what you should do is take a picture of my studio and everybody put my studio behind them.
Well, we can do that too. Send us a picture of your studio.
It would look like, but we'll take different sides of it. So it looks like we're in the same room, but on
right. Listen, please send me that second picture because it looks like the Miami coastline.
It's Honolulu, but I sent you 2 pictures.
You sent me this one too?
Yeah, I did. But this, sure? It's not Miami. It's Honolulu.
All
right, God willing, for this one, we'll try again in the morning. Give me a Hashem.
Hold on,
if we can manage to do one in the morning and one in the evening again.
Well, let me know. Keep me
really
posted.
Ideal.
Wait a minute. Make sure you sent me both those pictures. Oh, you said on WhatsApp. Right.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Okay, so 9:15 tomorrow.
Yeah. All right.